Alright guys, this is the drop dead last video that I'm going to post. It's a day or so early from your exam, and I just wanted to cover a few last minute things with you. Some things that might come in handy would be your 2020 AP exam day checklist. I don't know that I need to read the whole thing to you, but definitely make sure you get your AP ID. Name of the exam, you know that. The exam date is Friday the 22nd. Our check-in time will be 12:30 p.m. I will probably send you a reminder at 12:45. The exam itself starts at 1 p.m. And if you keep going here, it's got a whole lot of things that you should read and make sure that you have, cleared off and checked off so that you're feeling pretty comfortable about the exam. Now, the good news is that my exam is just about the last one, so you've probably already done this a number of times. I'm just kind of highlighting this for people for whom this will be their only exam, but it's a good reminder just to make sure everything is good to go here. And it goes on to the second page. Some of it's specific to certain exams that aren't the stats exam, but be that as it may, read this, check it over, make sure you've got everything checked off rather. Also, do some of the things that I typed up in our announcements, like check to make sure your calculator is fully charged. Check to make sure that you've got pencils that are sharpened and ready to go. Just little things that you're not just panicking in the middle while things are counting down and you snap a pencil lead and you think, oh dear, where's another pencil? So make sure you've got a backup for things and just make sure that you're just settled in and good to go. All right? So maybe print that out. I put it up in reprints. I kind of took out all the other stuff and just put test day items in there. Also, print out a formula sheet. These are really good, and they'll remind you of how to do certain things. This is for or, this is for and, although the and is in a different form of the formula. But all kinds of good formulas here. They're all labeled for you, all good to go. And maybe that'll remind you to take a little bit of time to put tabs in your notes. So if for some reason you feel like you ought to flip to something in particular, that you can do it quickly, because I really don't want you just sitting there, flipping through your notebooks back and forth as the time counts down. Sampling distributions, all sorts of good things. And if you keep going, you've got standard normal tables. I don't know that you would need it because we do normal CDF, but here it is. And let's see, what else have you got? You've got a T table. If you watched any of the videos that the guys from College Board put up there, they may have done some calculator stuff at the end of their videos, but they answered their questions with this T table. Chi-square you really don't need, so when you print this out, just ignore that, but everything before that is pretty good. And again, this is up in the reprint section. You just print that out. So checklist, formula sheet, and let's see, moving on, close all of them. We don't really need this open anymore. Okay, so I wanted to refer you to a couple of things online. My 5:15 announcement was really, really good. It has some good study sheets. If you didn't print those out or you look at them, it's a good thing to do. Maybe a little late to go to Khan Academy or to Fiveable, but they're there. The last 8 videos on the AP YouTube channel, they're pretty good. Probably the last 4 are where they just, or it's the last 5 where they delve directly into practiced AP exams. So if you still have time to look those over, those are good resources. Make sure that you're comfortable with the submission process. So remember your AP Classroom demo. Again, here's formula sheet. Here's that big AP testing guide. I doubt you need it anymore, but if you feel like you want to look up something like extended time or anything like that, it's all in there. And here's your checklist again. So 5:15, that's a good day to check. Also 5:18, it's got, remember I wrote this in green, it's got some information for what happens if you get a submission fail. Apparently they redid the program, so they give you instructions on how to quickly email your submissions. And again, make sure you're comfortable with the way that you've decided to do it. You know, you have the 3 options. You can send them a document if you want to type things up in a document. You can write out a document and then cut and paste from there to a field, or you can upload with your phone. Most kids that I've talked to after some of their earlier AP exams said the phone was the way to go. Again, here's some links, your testing guide, exam demo, test day checklist. This is pretty good. Additional tips to help your students succeed. All of this here is for world language students. So this link here will take you here. So tips to avoid problems on exam days. They tell you a little bit about, you know, updating your browser, disabling plugins, not to try to upload HEIC forms of, why can't I think of what I'm trying to think of? Picture files, just JPEGs. So yeah, definitely if your phone is going to give you HEIC, find a way to email that back to yourself and convert it to a JPEG. And, you know, keeping an eye on the time and all this kind of thing. So there's a good link on your 5:18 announcement for you to follow. All right. So on that note, I'm going to close this out. And I did put together a little PowerPoint. It was really quick. So I don't even have any animations here. All right. What I was just thinking about is what things would go together well. If you have a 3-hour AP Stats exam suddenly condensed to 45 minutes, then they're going to want to cover as much of the course as they possibly can. So they're going to give you a scenario. If you've done any kind of these practice exams, you're used to seeing it, and then they're going to branch out into the different topics that we covered. For example, a bunch of things that nest particularly well is if they're talking to you about putting together an experiment, maybe they would then ask you for methods to allocate subjects to treatments, which would be random allocation. You'd have to describe that process. Graphing issues, they may throw a graph in the middle of this and have you interpret it. They may ask you to perform inference. They may throw in error analysis here. These are all things that kind of connect, and I could see natural connections between them. There may be other things that they could throw in there too that I just didn't think about. But you know, go back and look at experimental design. You have completely randomized experimental design. You have block design. You have matched pairs. All those kinds of things. How to interpret graphs using CUS and referring to mean and median. When do you use mean and when do you use median? How can you get an outlier? How would you talk about spread or shape, or that sort of thing? Inference. All we've got are z-tests for proportions and t-tests for means. There's no chi-square. There's no inference for regression. Look over your error analysis. They may throw in there how would you make a type 1 error? How could you make a type 2 error? How could you increase the power? Anything of that nature. All right, some other things that nest well. probability, and that would take you from standard normal to regular probability to random variables to binomial and geometric random variables. All of these things can be kind of mined from a single scenario. They may give you two-way tables. That's got a big part of probability to it, but maybe less so for those. I could see those more for not so much quantitative, but more for categorical, but definitely these first four. So look over how to do binomial and geometric. How do you make the shorthand notation for binomial? How do you make the shorthand notation for standard normal? How can you do a back standardizing for standard normal? How do random variables work? How do you get the mean? How do you get the standard deviation? How can you combine them? That sort of thing. Remember probability? We had rules for them. We had general addition rules. We had addition rules for disjoint events. What is a disjoint event? Or what are a pair of disjoint events? We had multiplication rules. We had Venn diagrams and tree diagrams. So look those over. Okay? Some other things that nest well. Linear regression in general just seem to be one big collective group of things. So linear could be combined with exponential. You may need to interpret a residual plot to see if something fits a linear model, or if you're seeing some sort of exponential behavior. You may need to interpret it once it's done. You won't have to build any of these graphs, but definitely you'll be given one or two, I imagine, and you'll have to interpret. All right? Comparative graphs. What comes to mind are comparative segmented bar graphs. In the previous one, that would be more quantitative. Well, sorry. Here, these would be more quantitative graphs. All right? So how would you compare them? You'd have to compare the centers. If one has an outlier, another one doesn't. The shape of the two, the spread, is one more variable than another? All right, and finally, other topics which nest well, if you have categorical data like two-way tables, that could generate categorical graphs. Comparative categorical graphs. You may have to drill down deep into two-way tables to get marginal distributions, or you'd have to get some kind of percentages or probability based on certain conditions. You know, given that a person was 25 to 40 years old, what's the probability that they had a college degree? That kind of thing. And of course, that would lead you to probability. So these are the kinds of things that I thought I'd just throw out there to give you a notion of how they might develop a broad base of topics from a single scenario. Keep in mind that you do have, two questions. One's 25 minutes, so they could drill down deeper and explore other facets that they could throw in there. You have another one that's 15 minutes that has to be somewhat limited. Either way, once you get to that 5-minute warning, I want you to stop. If you're not done, fine. I want you to stop. Upload what you have. The idea here is to get a 3, a 4, or a 5. I know some of you guys, you're big time perfectionists. I know how that is. I'm that way too. But, if you don't get that thing submitted on time, then you could get a 0 when in fact you earned enough for a 4. So get that 4, get that credit. That's all that matters, all right? Context, answer everything in context. Don't be like me and think that you have to answer every little thing like a book length, right? Right now I'm reading Portrait of a Lady. I just read 750 pages and it ended weird. And then it occurred to me that there was another part to it. I have to read another 750 pages, but I digress. The point here is be succinct. Be very succinct, but be complete. Answer all the parts and make sure the people who are going to read this understand that you know what you're talking about, okay? And that you can communicate well. All right, so what I want to leave you with then is, maybe I can get myself up here on the screen. Oops, I didn't save that, so this better be a good video. And I didn't even get myself ready. All right, here I am. Hi. Look, just do your best, all right? I don't want you to do your best so that I look good. I really don't care. I got a job next year. All I want for you is to earn your college credit. That was what you signed up to do. So please get her done and everything will work out fine. All right, so make sure you've gone over your checklist. Maybe look over this video again to see how things are nested. Maybe it'll give you some ideas for some last minute study. Make sure that you can upload right. Make sure that you follow the clock, and just have fun with it. Show them that you know what you know, and you know the course, and all you need to do is show them that you know it. So this is the last that I will be speaking to you, unless somehow or other we Zoom. But once the exam is done, if you want to email me your impressions, go back to Canvas. If seniors, I think you still have access to Canvas, or you will for a few days after all of this. Send me an email through Canvas, or just regular through the district email. I would love to hear what you think. So on that note, good luck, and I hope to hear from you about all of this.